Hello students, my name is Sanushree and I welcome you all to the third lecture of our series Agriculture through MCQs. So in this series we have already covered two lectures and this is the third lecture, and topic for our today's class is Principles of Agronomy Part 2. Alright, so without wasting any further time, let's get started. So the first question for today's class is, which of the following crops require optimum temperature of around 32 degrees Celsius? Option A, wheat, B, rice, C, maize, and D, sorghum, right? And just pause the video and tell me the correct answer. So the correct answer for this question is option number B, which is rice, right? See students, as far as different crops are concerned, each crop has its own requirement as far as the water availability is concerned, as far as the temperature is concerned, right? So in this question, we are going to discuss about the temperature requirements of different crops, all right? So the first crop here in this question that we have is wheat. Now, as far as wheat is concerned, wheat is essentially a rabi crop, right? Now, rabi crop means that it is sown in the time of around November, right? October-November period, this crop is sown. Why? Because wheat is a crop which requires mild and cold conditions when it is sown, right? At the sowing period, it requires cold conditions. However, for ripening, right? At the ripening stage, it requires bright sunshine, right? So for wheat, the ripening part happens when the temperature it is bright. It is when sunshine is there and the temperature is not that cold, right? And as you have seen, that ripening of wheat it happens during the time of Holi. ठीक है? जब होली पे जाते हैं तो गेहूं लेकर जाते हैं ताकि होलिका दहन में की पूजा में इस्तेमाल कर सके. तो that essentially tells us कि the ripening of wheat it happens in that February March time when we have bright sunshine, right? However, the sowing it happens at the time when the environmental temperature it is cold, right? And as far as rainfall requirement and the water requirement for wheat is concerned, it requires around 60 to 75 centimeter of rainfall. All right. Now next we have is rice. Now rice essentially it is a kharif crop, right? Being a kharif crop, it requires high temperature and high humidity. So the ideal temperature which is required by a rice crop to grow at its best is around 32 degrees Celsius, right? And its rainfall requirements are also high. It grows well in the areas where the rainfall is more than 100 centimeters, right? Where the annual distribution of rainfall, it is more than 100 centimeters. Now you might ask, what about the areas like Punjab and Haryana where rainfall is not that much? In areas which are deficient in rainfall, rice can be grown with a good network of irrigation facilities. Areas like Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh, they have very good irrigation facilities in terms of canal network, in terms of tube well network, right? So because of that, a very good yield of rice crop is grown, is something which we receive from these areas, right? Now, as far as maize is concerned, maize is again a kharif crop, right? And the best part about maize is that it can be used both as a food crop and as a fodder crop also, all right? And as far as the temperature requirements of maize are concerned, it is also around 21 degrees Celsius to 27 degrees Celsius, right? So these are the temperature conditions which we require for different crops, right? And here also, again in the table form, we have given you what are the different temperature requirements and what are the ideal temperature requirements for different crops. All right, now let's move to the next question. So the next question asks you that consider the following statements about relative humidity and choose the incorrect statement. So out of these four statements, you have to choose the statement which is incorrect as far as relative humidity is concerned. All right. So the correct answer for this question is option number A, that relative humidity is a measure of the actual amount of water vapor. Now before I go on to explain you about these options, let me discuss a few things with you. Okay, so first of all the question arises, what is meant by the term humidity? See students, we all know that in the air a certain amount of water vapor is present, right? Now this water vapor present in the air is nothing but humidity, right? So with this you come to know about the term humidity. Now, as far as the term humidity is concerned, there are few related concepts also, right? That is saturated air and the unsaturated air. So here unsaturated is written. Along with unsaturated, there is one more term which is the saturated air. Now, what is meant by these terms, saturated and the unsaturated? See students, every mass of air, it has different water holding capacity, which again is dependent on the temperature of that air mass, right? Higher the temperature of the air mass, higher will be the water holding capacity of that air, right? Now suppose if this is a mass of air, and this mass of air, it has 100 units of water holding capacity, right? At a given temperature, suppose this air, it can have 100 units of water in it as water vapor, right? Now this is the maximum capacity this air can hold as a water vapor. Now if the amount of water vapor which is actually present in the air, it is anything less than 100 units, right? If the actual amount of water vapor, it is less than 100 units, then that air will be known as unsaturated air, right? Which means that till now it has not reached its maximum capacity, right? So that is known as the unsaturated air. And as far as saturated air is concerned, so when the water vapor, the amount of water vapor, it is at the maximum of the air's holding capacity, right? If it is 100 units, then that air will be known as the saturated air, ठीक है? And जैसे in our daily life also we talk about saturation, ठीक है? जब पढ़ते पढ़ते पूरा थक जाते हैं और हम कहते हैं कि अब मेरा saturation point आ गया, अब मैं इससे ज्यादा नहीं पढ़ सकता, ये मेरी maximum capacity है, ठीक है? तो उसको हम कहते हैं saturation point, right? So similarly we have saturation point of air as well, right? Where the air is having the maximum it can have, right? The maximum of water vapor that it can have, then that air will be known as saturated air. And if it is holding anything below its maximum capacity, then that is unsaturated air. All right, so with this, the concept of saturated and unsaturated air is concerned. Now we have two more concepts to understand, that is relative humidity, and there is one more term which is absolute humidity. Now what is meant by these terms, relative humidity and absolute humidity? See students, like this is the maximum capacity I have written here, which the air can hold, right? Now suppose the actual water vapor is 75 units in the air, right? So actually the water is holding 75 units of water vapor in the air. Now this amount of water vapor which is there, irrespective of what is the temperature, irrespective of what is the maximum water holding capacity of the air, this is known as the absolute humidity, right? So the actual amount of water vapor which is there in the air, irrespective of what is the temperature, irrespective of what is the maximum water holding capacity of the air, then that water vapor or that level of humidity is known as the absolute humidity, right? It is an absolute number. Now coming to the second word, which is the relative humidity. Now as the word itself suggests, relative means it is related to something. What it is related to? Relative humidity is amount of the water vapor which is present in the air as compared to its maximum water holding capacity, right? Now suppose if there are 75 units of water vapor in the air, but its maximum capacity is the 100 units, so the relative humidity will be 75%, which means that out of the 100 units, the maximum 100 units which the air can hold, currently it is holding only 75 units. So 75% will be our relative humidity, right? So I think with this, the concept of saturated, unsaturated, relative and absolute humidity is clear to you. All right, now let's move to what our question is saying. So here in this question, the option number A says that relative humidity is a measure of the actual amount of water vapor in the air regardless of the air's temperature. Now this option becomes wrong because this explanation, it is not of relative humidity, it is there of absolute humidity, right? This actual amount of water, irrespective of the air's temperature, it is absolute humidity and not the relative humidity, and that is why this option number A got wrong. Now, relative humidity of 40 to 60% is suitable for the most crop plants. Yes, as far as crop plants are concerned, they too have their preference for the humidity also. Now, as I told you, in the case of rice, it requires a high humid conditions, right? So every crop, it has different requirements of humidities. Now, this range, it is like the ideal range is 40 to 60%. Why more humidity is not preferred by the crops? It is because, like, if there are more humid conditions, then it will be a breeding grounds for the plant pathogens. Plant pathogens, they survive better in the you can say in the high humid conditions, right? So if the humidity is very high, then it becomes very easy for diseases like powdery mildew or downy mildew and certain types of bleaches to occur, right? So these diseases, they thrive better in high humid conditions, and therefore most of the crops, they don't prefer high humidity. The second reason why crops don't prefer high humidity is because of the reduction in transpiration, right? Now, transpiration, it is that process in which the plant, it loses the water through leaves, right? In the very simple language, this is meant by the term transpiration. Now, this process of transpiration, it is actually dependent on the water gradient between the leaf and in the outside atmosphere. In the case of high relative humidity, or in case of 100% relative humidity, when 100% relative humidity means saturated air only, right? So in that situation, the air, it is already full of water, right? So in that situation, your transpiration will be reduced considerably. Now, transpiration, I told you what is transpiration. Here, understand why transpiration is important. Transpiration is important for two reasons primarily. First, it helps the plant to cool itself cool, right? And secondly, it helps in the nutrient uptake as well. Now, when the transpiration is reduced, then the plant, it might go, a heat stress. It might underwent a heat stress because transpiration is reduced. And secondly, the nutrient uptake also might reduce because of reduced transpiration, right? So these are some of the problems associated with the increased relative humidity, right? And therefore, most of the plants, they prefer relative humidity in the range of 40 to 60%. All right. So with this, I think the concept of humidity, why it is important, what is the relative humidity, and all these concepts are clear to you. Okay. Now let's move ahead to the next question. It says that which of the following terms is used to describe the reaction of the plants to the light direction? You just answer this question. Okay. So the correct answer for this question is option number C, phototropism. Now, what is meant by these terms? Photomorphogenesis, photoperiodism, and phototropism. Let us understand one by one. So let's start with the correct option, which is option number C, phototropism. So as we all know that plants, they need sunlight to carry out photosynthesis. But if you have seen, if we ever keep our plant in a dark room, right? Suppose this is a dark room, and here there is just one window from which the sunlight can enter. And if here we have kept the plant, right? So this plant, it will have a tendency to bend down like this, right? Because it requires a lot of light to carry on the photosynthesis. Now, this reaction of the plant towards the light direction, right? The bending of the plant towards the right direction, and the bending of the bending of the roots of the plant away from the plant direction, this is known as phototropism. This bending of the stem towards the towards the sun's direction, this is positive phototropism, and the bending of roots away from the sun's direction, that is the negative phototropism, right? So this is the process of phototropism, right? And why this phototropism happens, like which hormone aids in the process of phototropism? Just comment down and tell me like in the comment section. Okay, after phototropism, the next term we had, it was photoperiodism, right? See students, different plants, they carry out their activities such as flowering and ripening on the different sunlight in different sunlight conditions, right? Now what does this term actually means? See, certain plants, they are short day plants. Now what is meant by the term short day plants? Short day plants are essentially those plants which require short light period in their flowering period, or they flower in the period when the light duration or when the time of day it is less than the less as compared to the time of night, right? So as you can see here in this part, right? So if a flower is blooming in this scenario, or if it is blooming in this scenario, then we will call it a short day plant, right? Now why it will be called a short day plant? Because the flowering, it will be happening in the time period where the length of the day is shorter as compared to the critical duration period, right? So that is a short day plant, right? And then there are long day plant, as the name itself suggests, when the flowering it happens when the length of the day it is more than the critical duration, then that will be known as the long day plant. And then there is a third category of plant which is known as the day neutral plants. Day neutral plants, they can flower in any kind of light period, right? Whenever like even they will flower even in the situations when the days are shorter, and also they can flower in the situation when days are longer, right? So the third category, it is known as the day neutral plants. All right, so this is photoperiodism. Now the third term which we read, it was photomorphogenesis. Now what is photomorphogenesis? Photomorphogenesis basically means certain structural physiological changes which are undertaken by the plant to maximize the uptake of the sun rays, right? So as it can carry as much photosynthesis as it can. Suppose the plant, if it is growing in an area where the sunlight reaches very less, right? Where there is less sunlight, then that plant might have bigger leaves or more stem growth to ensure that it can it can take a lot of sunlight and its photosynthesis process can be maximized. So these morphological changes which happen in a plant due to the signals it gets from the sunlight, right? Because of these sunlight signals, whatever morphological processes which happen in a plant, they are known as photomorphogenesis, right? So I hope with this all these terms are clear to you. Now let's move ahead to the next question. It says that which of the following terms explain the available water for plant growth? Saturation, field capacity, wilting point, or permanent wilting point, right? So the correct answer for this question is option number B, field capacity. Okay. Now before I go on to explain these terms, why is it not working? This option number B, field capacity. Okay. Now, if you know, like if this is a soil, in the soil there are pores, there are micropores and there are macropores. Depending on their diameters, there are micropores and macropores, right? When we are supplying water to our crops, when we are supplying water in this soil, then there are three steps which can happen, right? And those three steps are saturation, field capacity, wilting point, or the permanent wilting point, right? This permanent wilting point, this is not just any separate step. Just wait for a minute, I'm going to explain it to you as well. See students, what happens is, like there are macropores and then there are micropores also, right? So initially when we supply the water to the soil, both these macropores and micropores, they will be filled with water, right? But these micropores, they cannot hold water for a very long period of time because of the gravitational force, and this water which is there in the macropores, it will go downwards, right? And wait, so the water in the macropores, it will simply percolate in the levels below in the soil, right? In the substrata of the soil, and this water, it will be not available for the plant's uptake, right? So this water, this situation is known as the saturation point. Saturation point means when all the macropores and micropores are filled with water, but this water will not be available for the plant's uptake because under the influence of gravity, this entire water from the macropores, it will percolate down to the lower levels, right? It will drain down. Example of this is that in our houses, whenever we water a plant, right? Suppose you have a water, if you have a pot and you have planted any plant in that. Suppose you have grown a jade plant in it, right? And then you are watering that plant. So at first what happens is, like if you pick up this pot up like that, you will see that a lot of water is coming down from the drainage hole. Right? Now that is the saturation point, because here both the macropores and micropores are filled with water, and the excess water from the macropores, it is getting down because of the gravitational force. Now that is the saturation level, right? After that we come to the second level, which is the field capacity. In the field capacity, all the water from these macropores, it must have been drained down, right? And only the micropores are filled with water, right? So in the field capacity, water is there only in the micropores, and this water, it does not move away with the gravitational force, and this is the water which is available for the plant's uptake, right? So therefore the answer here was field capacity, right? Now the third point is the wilting point. Wilting point means that in the third stage, when the water is you can say, when the water is completely drained out even from the micropores, and only a thin film of water remains around the soil particles, right? If this is the soil particle, and if only a thin layer or thin film of water remains around this soil particle, then that will be known as a wilting point, right? So this water again is not there for the plant's uptake. Why? Because this water is very tightly held by the soil particles, and therefore plants cannot uptake this water, right? So it is the field capacity where the water is available for the plant's uptake. Now you might ask, what is the difference between wilting point and permanent wilting point? So see students, the difference between the wilting point and the permanent wilting point is that in both these conditions, water is not available to the plant, right? But what is the difference? The difference is that in the wilting point, the plant, it still has the scope to recover, but in the permanent wilting point, the plant cannot recover, right? Now let me give you an example that at this point, the summer, it is very harsh here in North India, and if at your home you have a tulsi plant, right, or you have a mint plant, पुदीना या तुलसी अगर घर पर है, तो आपने देखा होगा कि अगर आप उन्हें एक भी दिन पानी ना डालें तो वो ऐसे ड्रूप कर जाते हैं, ठीक है? The plants, they start drooping. That is the wilting point, because here the plant, it does not have any water, the soil, it does not have any water for the plant's uptake, right? And the plant, it starts drooping. So that is the wilting point. However, if you supply water to the plant in such a scenario, it can recover, right? Okay, so that is the wilting point. But permanent wilting point is that when even after you supply water, right, later on if you supply the water, even then the plant will not be able to recover, right? Suppose in the example of mint only, if in the morning the plant is drooping and you supply the water by afternoon or at max by the next day's morning, the plant will recover. But after a week, or if after 10 days if you are supplying water, right, the plant must have reached the permanent wilting point where it is not going to recover even after you supply water to it, and that is the permanent wilting point, right? So that is the difference between wilting point and permanent wilting point. All right, so I think with this, all these terms and their concepts are clear to you. Okay, so here it is the diagrammatic representation of what I have just explained you. As you can see in this picture, all the macropores and micropores, they are filled with the water, and the water is draining down, right? So this water is again not available for the plant's uptake. Here in this picture, as you can see, all the macropores, right, they don't have water, and the water is available only in the micropores, right? And this is the water which will be available to the plants, right? And then in the third picture, as you can see, the water, it is just in the form of a thin film around the soil particles, and again not available for the plant's uptake, and this is the wilting point. All right, now let's move ahead to the next question. Okay, this question is also very similar to what we have done previously. Why I have taken this question is because again the terms are new to you and you should be knowing the meaning of these terms as well, right? So please try answering this question. So the correct answer for this question is Option number C, capillary water. Again, what is the difference between gravitational water, hygroscopic water and capillary water? As we have studied previously, you can see in this picture, both the macropores and micropores, they are filled with water. Now this water, it will move downwards because of the gravitational force, and this water will be known as the gravitational water, right? As written here as well, that it drains and flows out vertically, right? So vertically, this entire water will drain out and it will not be available for the plant's uptake, right? Then we have the capillary water, right? So here the capillary forces, they keep the water they keep the water in the micropores against the gravitational force, right? So here the capillary forces, they overpower the gravitational force and they keep the micropores filled with the water, right? So this water in the micropores, it does not travel vertically under the influence of gravitational force, and that is why this water is known as the capillary water, and this water is held in the micropores, and it is exactly this water which is available for the plant's uptake. And then we have hygroscopic water, right? And this water just forms a thin film around the soil particles, as I've already explained you, right? So this water is again not available for the plant's uptakes, and therefore the answer was capillary water. All right. Now let's move to the next question. It says that what is reflected by the term soil reaction? Okay, so soil reaction means what? So here the answer is option number C, soil pH, right? Now soil pH is what we call soil reaction also. Now what is soil pH and why is soil pH important? We are going to discuss here, right? See students, what is soil pH? So soil, they can be acidic or they can be basic in the nature, alkaline in nature on the basis of their pH. Most of the crops, they prefer neutral pH of 7, right? Now why this soil pH is important? Why it is important for our soils to be neutral? What is the problem if the soils are slightly acidic or the soils are slightly alkaline? What is the issue? Let me tell you. See, there are nutrients in the soil. If the soils are more acidic or if they are more alkaline, then this uptake of the nutrients and the availability of the nutrients for the plant's uptake, it is reduced, right? How it is reduced? Let me again tell you. For example, there is a nutrient phosphorus, right? Phosphorus is there. Now in situations of low pH, right? So this phosphorus, it is soluble when the pH is around 6 to 7.5. So when the pH range is around 6 to 7.5, this phosphorus, it is soluble and it is available for the plant's uptake. All right. However, if the soil, it becomes acidic in nature, or its pH is reduced, in that condition, this phosphorus precipitate. Now what is meant by the term phosphorus precipitate? Precipitate basically means that the soluble compound of the phosphorus, it becomes a solid insoluble compound, right? It transforms itself into a solid insoluble compound, and the plant's ability to uptake this nutrient will be reduced, right? And this nutrient will not be available for the plant's uptake, right? So that is the harm which low pH causes, right? Because in conditions of low pH, phosphorus precipitate, and if there are conditions of high pH, you can say, or if the soils are alkaline in nature, then in that case mineral cations like iron, like zinc, like manganese, they precipitate, right? So for the ideal uptake, or you can ideal nutrition availability to the plant, it is important that the soil pH, it is maintained, right? So that was all about what is the soil pH and why, what is the importance of soil pH. All right, so now let's move ahead to the next question. Okay, so the next question says that mineral matter is divided into sand, silt and clay, which are often considered as the main mineral particles, which are collectively called as, right? So collectively, what is the name of sand, silt and clay? So collectively, these three, they are known as soil separates, right? Sand, silt and clay together, they are known as soil separates, right? Now what is the difference between sand, silt and clay? See, the difference in the sand, silt and clay, it essentially lies in their size, right? The clay particles, as you can see, they have the least diameter, that is 0.002 micrometers, right? So that is how small a clay particle is, right? So the clay particles, they are very small as compared to the silt particles. Silt particles are bigger in size, and the sand particles, as you can see, they are even bigger. So the difference as far as sand, silt and clay are concerned, it lies in their size basically, right? So that was about the soil separates. Now let's come to the next question, and a very easy question. Soils with which of the following pH are best for the growth of most of the crops? So you all must be knowing the answer of this question. The correct answer here is 7. So most of the crops, they prefer neutral pH, and the reason I have just told you in the previous slide in a very detailed manner, because of the nutrition availability. If the soil pH, it deviates from the neutral, then the plant nutrition's availability, it will be reduced considerably, right? Now coming to the next question, which of the following refers to the quality of work performed by a plow expressed in terms of the particle size distribution, right? So the correct answer here is option number A, soil pulverization. Okay. Now all these terms, they are very important. See, as far as soil pulverization is concerned, what is meant by the term soil pulverization? See, here as you can see, the breakdown of the particles into smaller and finer particles, it is known as soil pulverization, right? Now, as far as this is known as the pulverization. Now, what is the soil pulverization? Soil pulverization basically means that here we check the quality of the work which is done by a plow, or you can say which is done by a machine in terms of particle size distribution, right? What is the distribution of particles, and what is the distribution of the particles in terms of their size? Like see, if there are particles of very big size, if in the entire field, if the particles of large size, they are more in the field, then that is not an ideal condition, right? So that is meant by the particle size distribution. We see that how many particles of which size are there in the field basically, right? So in the layman's term, that is what we meant by the term soil pulverization. And how is soil pulverization done? Right? How we check the particle size distribution? It is done through sieve analysis. In the sieve analysis, what we essentially do is we use sieves with different sieve holes, you can say. The sizes of the sieve holes, they are different at different levels, right? So it keeps on getting narrower as we move downwards. So through this sieve analysis, we separate the soil particles, then we take their cumulative weight, and then we plot it on a graph. So there is a very detailed and very technical process which is involved here, and through that we come to know that whether the particle size distribution, it is ideal or not. So that is the soil pulverization. And just let me check the other options. The second one was the soil inversion. Okay, so as we all know that soil inversion, so whenever we do the plowing, so the soil is essentially inverted. And why we do plowing, I just explained you in the last class, so as to remove the weed and to improve the aeration of the soil. Now you see, soil inversion basically, it is a ratio of or you can say it is a percentage of what was the number of the weeds which were seen in the field after plowing, and the number of weeds which were seen in the field before plowing. So when we take this ratio, it is known as soil inversion, right? So here you can see in this field, like before the like I have taken both the scenarios. So like this field, this side of the field, it shows us the field and the number of weeds before the plowing was done. So similar situation must have been there for this part as well, right? So as we are able to see weeds in this part, so before plowing there must have been weeds in this part also. So that is the number of weeds seen before plowing, right? And this is the number of weeds seen after plowing. So when we take the ratio of these two parts, we get soil inversion. Okay. The third option that we have, it is the field efficiency. Now, field efficiency, it is a ratio of effective field capacity to theoretical field capacity. Now, what is meant by the term effective field capacity and theoretical field capacity? See students, theoretical field capacity basically means what is the maximum or what is the amount of work a machine can done if it is operating at the 100% of its rated speed. Rated speed means rated forward speed basically. So rated forward speed means the maximum or the optimum speed at which the machine can work, right? And also at the rated width. Rated width means the optimum width of the which the machine can cover. So when the machine is working at its rated forward speed at its rated width, then what is the 100% of the capacity which can be achieved by the machine? That is known as the theoretical field capacity. Now coming to the effective field capacity. So effective field capacity basically means the amount of work, or you can say the amount of capacity which is actually done by the machine, that is known as the effective field capacity. So when we take the ratio of these two terms, we get the field efficiency, right? And as far as the term soil reaction is concerned, I already told you that soil reaction is nothing but the soil pH, right? So this is about the question number 9. Now let's move ahead to the next question. Which of the following is not an internal factor or the genetic or hereditary factor which affects the yield, right? So the correct answer here is option number C, edaphic. See, the edaphic factors are those factors which are related to the soil. Here we are asking about the internal factors. Internal factors means all those factors which are there in the genetic makeup of the plant itself, right? And external factors, as you can see, are those factors which are present in the environment of the plant and which in turn affects the plant. So that is the difference between external factors and the internal factors. Here, resistance to lodging, early maturity, drought, flood and salinity tolerance. All these are internal factors. These factors, they are dependent on the plant's genetic makeup, right? And these are all the internal factors. Now, edaphic factors, as far as concerned, they are related to the soil and they are not the internal factors, they are the external factors. And here the question was asking which of the following is not an internal factor, and therefore the answer is option number C. Okay. Now with this we have come to an end for today's question. Now is the time for certain homework question. Okay. Which of the following is a day neutral crop? In the today's class itself, I told you about the short day plants, long day plants and day neutral plants. So you have to tell me that which of the following are which of the following are day neutral crops, right? Okay, so moving to the second question, it says that high or low pH interferes with the availability of other plant nutrients. At high pH, which of the following elements compounds are converted into a non-exchangeable form, making it non-available to the plants? This concept also I explained to you in a great detail. Now is the time for you to answer this homework question. Okay. So you have to tell me that out of sodium, boron, potassium and calcium, which of the following will be not available to the plant in the conditions or in the situations of a high pH in soil. All right. Now coming to the homework questions which I have given you in the last class, we are going to discuss the answers of those questions now. So the first question was, who is known as the father of tillage? So the correct answer here is option number A, Jethro Tull. All right. So, and the second question was, which of the following operation is or are not performed in the sugarcane? So, the correct answer here is puddling, because puddling essentially means plowing in the wet field, repeated plowing in the wet field, and it is done essentially for crops like rice. So, the correct answer here is puddling. Puddling is not done for sugarcane. All right. Okay, so this is the schedule which we gave to you in the first session also. So we have covered Introduction to Agriculture, Principles of Agronomy Part 1 and Principles of Agronomy Part 2. In the next class, which is going to happen on 24th of June, the coming Monday, we will be discussing about the field crops. Again, field crops is a very important topic, and therefore we are going to devote 2 classes to this topic, right? So on 24th of June, we are going to cover field crops Part 1. All right. So if you are new to this channel and you haven't subscribed to our channel as of yet, please do subscribe it. And for all the latest updates as far as the classes are concerned and links of the videos are concerned, you can join our Telegram channel as well, right? So thank you for being there with me till the end of this class, and I hope you like this lecture. If there is any feedback from your side for me to improve in these classes, please tell me in the comment section below. Okay, thank you so much.